Thanks for tuning into Howe's Things, the podcast and radio show from the David A. Howe Public Library, recorded right here in Wellsville, New York, in Nick's office. I'm Allie Fessmeyer.
I'm Nick Gunning.
And today we're doing something special.
Ooh.
We've talked a little bit, kind of alluded to the fact that we are going to be soon kind of refreshing the podcast.
That's right. Does it count as a spin-off? Would we count it as a spin-off of Howe's Things? That's what I want to know.
It's more fun if we say it's a spin-off.
It's a spin-off.
So I say yes, it's a spin-off.
Yep.
We're doing a spin-off.
We're going to open a bakery together and adopt some dogs. And
I would love to open a bakery.
Would you?
That sounds fun.
You know
I
what?
don't bake that much, so it's probably a terrible idea.
This town needs a bakery.
It does.
It
I think
really
about
does.
this all the time. Twice a week, I really want a croissant.
Yes, I know.
And what am I going to do?
I know.
Occasionally Giant will have croissants, but it's not predictable enough.
Yes, I know. But what I want is to, just be walking with headphones on and walk into a bakery that smells good and get, a croissant or a Danish and a coffee and just, sit there
or
for 20
5
minutes.
Danishes.
Yes. And then just, go to work. So if anybody out there wants to open up some sort of bakery here in Wellsville, you would have 2 loyal customers.
2 loyal customers. And I will just cede that I think the Stillwater's place with the cute little outdoor patio
it does have
would
that patio.
Be a fantastic location.
That's true.
For any possible bakery entrepreneurs.
You could get some, This is a great idea. All these are great ideas, but I feel I've gotten us off track.
Okay, so a few details about our spinoff.
Yes.
The title is But Have You Tried? And the idea is we're going to take turns suggesting something for the other person to try.
Yeah.
And then we're going to discuss them. In between, we'll have an episode where we just talk about stuff we've been reading, watching, eating.
That'll give the other one
etc.
time to investigate the assigned topic.
Right.
So we'll
Yes,
have that one
which is
where
important.
we'll still do Reader's Advisory and talk about the things we've been reading and watching, as Sally said. So yeah, it's going to be a good time.
So for today, Nick, have
Yes.
you ever tried the movie I'm Your Woman?
You know what, Allie? I have. I have. It was recommended to me by you.
Oh, wow.
It was assigned to me by you. And when you said that, I initially thought that you meant that movie with Michelle Pfeiffer, but that's I Will Never Be Your Woman.
Okay.
That's Michelle
it's a
Pfeiffer.
little different.
Yeah,
It's
that's
not giving
Michelle
quite the
Pfeiffer
same
and Paul
energy.
Rudd, and it's
that sounds like a
it's
blast.
a rom-com, and it is really good. It is really good.
Have we ever talked about the fact that Paul Rudd just always is the same age, no matter what?
I mean, that's just a fact. That's just a weird fact.
It is a strange fact, but true.
I recently turned 40, as you may or may not be aware. And on my 40th birthday, we watched the Paul Rudd, Leslie Mann movie, This Is 40. Have you ever seen it?
I don't think I have.
There was that movie Knocked Up that came up forever ago with Katherine Heigl and Seth Rogen. And Paul Rudd and Leslie Mann played supporting characters in that. So This Is Us is a spin-off, kind of like the new podcast of that movie. And I watched it forever ago when it came out, and I liked it. And so we were like, oh, let's watch it now. And it definitely hit differently watching it as a 40-year-old. So, so that was a good time. But yes, Paul Rudd is ageless. He's good in that movie, and it's funny because it's Paul Rudd and Michelle Pfeiffer, and then they're together in the Ant-Man movie, only they don't play love interests in the Ant-Man movie. So
Is Michelle Pfeiffer in the Ant-Man movie?
yeah, she's the Wasp. I have a pop figure in my office right now of Michelle Pfeiffer as the Wasp. Have you not seen Ant-Man and the Wasp?
I haven't seen Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Oh, okay, there you go.
But I saw the first Ant-Man
Yeah,
movie.
she's not in that.
Okay.
Remember, they talk about her. They talk about Janet being missing and trapped in, the microverse or
Oh,
whatever.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, Ant-Man and the Wasp is really good.
I want to see it.
Okay.
There's no good reason that I haven't. I
None.
just haven't.
Okay. All right. So, anyway, all that to say, this movie is not that movie, but as I was a terrible student, I got to tell you that right up front. I was the king of doing the minimal amount of work while achieving the most I could.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So it was what's
So
the bare
like
minimum?
the Cliff
I'll do
Notes
it.
kind of situation?
Yeah. I can't tell you how many papers I wrote and printed and then presented in class while they were still warm from the printer. That was how I rolled in the olden days.
As long as you know the printer will work, I say that's fine.
Do you? You support that?
Well, if you think the printer might be about to breathe its last and you're going to have a problem, I recommend printing at least the night before.
Okay. But that means you have to have written it at least by the night before, rather than finishing it in the library that morning. What kind of were you? You seem like somebody who would be way ahead of the game.
Well, I was usually ahead of the game in terms of I would have enough time to finish. I wouldn't be 15 minutes before finishing it, but I would usually print it pretty close to the actual class time, which could potentially be, flirting with danger if the printer goes kaput on you.
That is true. You never know. You never know what's going to happen. But anyway, I this time I did my due diligence. I did my homework. I looked it up. And I watched it. It's on Amazon Prime. And I hate to give them business because Amazon is my mortal enemy.
Know.
But I did watch it. Came out in 2020. Great year.
Phenomenal year.
Great year. Rated R. Directed by Julia Hart. And I looked her up, and she's also the writer-director of a movie called Fast Color. Have you seen Fast Color?
I don't think I have.
This was one that was on my list forever, and I finally watched it probably in 2020. And it's pretty good. It's about this woman who... It's not a superhero movie, but she has sort of like meta-human abilities, and it's kind of about dealing with that. So it's a very atypical... Like, I wouldn't classify it as a superhero movie other than the fact that she has powers.
That sounds cool.
But it was good, and it was interesting, and it had sort of the moodiness and kind of a noir feel that this movie had here today. Here are the stars of this movie. Rachel, do you say Brosnahan? How do you say her name?
That's how I have said it, but I don't know if I've ever actually heard any reputable person say it.
I mean, just based on phonics, that's how you say it.
That's how it seems like it should be said.
I'm going to lock that in. She was Jean in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which I haven't seen at all.
It's great.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. I loved Gilmore Girls back in the day. Same creator, same writer.
I didn't watch all of Gilmore Girls.
Okay.
But what I watched, I enjoyed.
I don't know how well Gilmore Girls would hold up. It's not been one I've been tempted to revisit. I liked it as it was coming out.
I feel like it's the kind of thing that I look back and I'm like, how was this a show? Like, what is this even about? I don't understand. But I enjoyed it at the time. Okay. And when my families first started watching The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, I was convinced that Rachel Brosnahan and Alexis Bledel were the same person. They do look similar.
They do, but I spent the whole time thinking she was Evan Rachel Wood. Do you know Evan Rachel Wood?
I don't think so.
You need to look her up because, like, I showed a picture of her to my wife, and she was like, "No, that's the lady from the movie," and I'm like, "It's not. This is Evan Rachel Wood." Anyway, she was also in Patriots Day and Crisis in 6 Scenes, which is a Woody Allen show. It's like a 6-episode thing, which I really liked. So I've seen her in other things, just not this. I also had seen Marsha Stephanie Black, who plays Terry in the movie. She was in How to Get Away with Murder, which I've seen some of. And Orange is the New Black, which I've seen none of. Have you seen either of those shows?
I have not seen it.
Okay. Probably not one there's probably not a family watch, I would say. We have Aaron Ziken as Cal, who I really liked him. I thought his performance was just really good. It was so understated, but also like so much was going on, and that's such a difficult balance, I feel like, to strike, and he did such a great job. I liked him quite a lot. He was in shows like The Informer and Flack, plus he had a bit part in The Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, a movie that I hate. So, yeah.
I don't know if we've ever discussed that.
Oh, do you like it?
I liked it.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
I can't help but, like, I feel like my struggle with that movie is that it couldn't decide whether it wanted to be like a 90s kids movie or like a serious adult wizard movie. And I get stuck on that kind of thing. I also felt like it was, for it to be like, this is the American wizarding school, it couldn't have been more British if it tried. Like, everything about it was so British.
That's really true,
yes?
actually.
Okay.
Which, like...
Well, there you go. I haven't seen any of the
others. I don't know. I'm fine with things being British, but it is true that it's weird to be like, American British school. Let's make it have a very British tone.
Well, there was a scene later on where they're all like having tea, and my wife was like, just have them have coffee and it'll feel like America. But they didn't. They were like, more tea. Anyway, it's not his fault, though. It's not this actor's fault. He was great. We have Frankie Faison as Art, the grandpa. He was in Luke Cage and Banshee, plus a lot of 80s movies like The Money Pit and Coming to America. Old school stuff. We have Marceline Hugo as Evelyn. She was in a movie called Mr. Harrigan's Phone, which is a adaptation of a Stephen King short story. It starred Donald Sutherland, which I just watched. It was really good. I didn't recognize her from that, but she was in it.
Who is Evelyn? I saw this movie in 2020. And
Evelyn is the neighbor lady.
Okay.
I have some serious thoughts about Evelyn, so we're going to have to discuss.
We can get into it.
We're going to try to not give away like
everything?
The really crucial details, but we can't discuss without some spoilers. So
I think that's
if you want to pause and go watch I Am Your Woman,
you totally should.
You should.
It's great.
It is good. I do recommend it. I liked it. Anyway, she was in that. She was in Dickinson, which you would definitely like.
I definitely would.
Okay. And 30 Rock. Finally, we have Bill Heck as Eddie. He was in Lock and Key in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which I think I'm the only person in the world who liked. Did you like the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man?
I haven't actually seen those.
Oh, but you saw the new, like, No Way Home?
Yes.
Oh, well, you're missing some emotional beats then if you haven't.
I know enough about what goes on to why I feel like at least understand the emotional beats.
Yeah.
And again, it's like ones that it's like there's no good reason why I haven't seen them. I want to.
Mm-hmm. Every time I've watched those movies, my opinion has changed on them. I was like, I like it. I don't. I like it. I don't. I pretty consistently like the second one with Jamie Foxx because it is such a vibrant, like, comic book movie. It feels more comic book-y. It feels like comic book panels in a way that the other Marvel stuff hadn't to me. So I appreciated that. But I think it kind of bombed. So, whatever. But this dude was in that, and he voiced Gambit in the Wolverine podcast. How do you feel about narrative podcasts?
I've never really thought about it.
Okay. Do you ever listen to them? Like fiction
I don't think
podcasts?
So.
I
guess I didn't really realize that was a thing.
Oh, really? I listened to a bunch of Welcome to Night Vale, and I listened to Empty. I don't know. It's not my go-to thing. But there's a whole like niche market out there. I don't think it's niche anymore. I think it's like mainstream. So I guess we're out of touch.
I guess.
Okay. All right. So that's the basic beats of the plot. Or of the cast and crew, I mean. The general plot summary, set in the 70s, and it has I like that it's both set in the 70s and feels like a movie that was made in the 70s. Mm-hmm. You know? It is a real throwback to movies of that time, you know, like Three Nights of the Condor. It just feels like that. The way it's shot, the way it's paced, it has the old school feel, which I think is a nice touch. I liked that a lot. But this woman, Jean, is married to this guy, Eddie, and Eddie brings home a kid, and suddenly they have a kid, and it's kind of a, like, how did this happen? Mm-hmm. And you get right away that Eddie's maybe not great. That Eddie's into some shady stuff. I
feel like there's definitely, especially in the beginning, this just, like, undercurrent of, like, unsettling. Something's off.
Yeah. Yeah. The actor, Bill Heck, I think does a really nice job of... He's never mean. He never raises his voice. But there's something that's, like, menacing and aggressive about even calm things he does. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a moment where he closes the door when she's in the kitchen, and it's just like, ooh, some bad stuff's about to happen. So I like that quite a bit. But very early, I mean, this is, like, the synopsis on Amazon. We don't know where Eddie is, and Eddie's, like, right-hand man comes and gets Jean and the baby whose name is...
I don't remember.
Henry?
That
Hank?
Sounds right. Something like that.
Harry. It's Harry. The baby's name is Harry.
It's like a very generic kind of name.
It's an old man name. He's like, you got to just get money and get clothes and get out of here, and you got to hide. And then Cal, this is where Cal comes into the story, and he's like the driver, and he's going to get her like established in a safe house. And the movie just sort of goes from there. And clearly, like, they're in danger. Clearly, they're being watched. You don't know Cal's backstory. A family comes into play later on, and she's kind of working with them, and there's other kids involved. And they're just, like, constantly running, and they have close calls. And then, of course, you know, you get the resolution, and you kind of figure out what's going on. And we'll pause before saying that. But it did a really nice job, I think, pacing-wise, of keeping that tension throughout without it getting boring. I felt like when we're in the second safe house and the family comes into play, I felt like that changed it a little bit in a way that I didn't like. Like, I liked it when she was alone more than I liked it when there was a bigger group. How do you feel?
Well, see, I feel like I just liked the family so much.
Yeah.
That probably colors my view.
True. I mean, performances were all good.
I found the experience of her just, like, being alone in the safe house with this child that she barely knows how to take care of.
Yeah.
Really unsettling in a way that's fascinating, but that I feel like if it was the entire movie, I would just get super antsy.
True.
So,
yeah. The panic that she feels when she realizes that Cal's not going to stay, where she's like, I've never been alone. I don't know how to do anything. Mm-hmm. And he basically is like, don't talk to anybody. Don't connect with anybody. There's a phone, like, in the drawer. If it's an emergency, plug it in. And that's it. I mean, that's her only lifeline. She just needs to stay there quietly with food and a baby that she doesn't know how to raise.
And it goes badly, I would say.
It does.
But, and I really like the other mom character from that family.
Terry, yeah.
Their dynamic, her and the main woman. Yeah. And so I feel like...
Well, and as you find out what their connection is a little bit later on, that adds a level to the story that I think is really interesting.
I agree.
The thing that I wanted to talk to you about is so in the middle sequence, when she's in the first safe house, and we have the next door neighbor coming and being a little, I mean, not nosy, not pushy, but like
a little weird.
Yeah, weird. She's got a weird energy. And then they have the dinner. She mentions that her friends lived there before, and then she asks where the bathroom is, and Jean is kind of like, well, if your friends lived here, don't you know? And she's like, oh, right, I forgot. It doesn't resolve. Like, it doesn't really resolve if Evelyn was working with the bad guys or not.
But she's definitely so sus.
She is. But do you think, like, you're supposed to speculate. Do you think?
See, like, on the one hand, yes. On the other hand, like, this is like 70s mobster kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I just don't know if being like, yeah, and this old woman is part of it.
Yeah.
Makes sense in that kind of context.
But I think it could. I think it certainly could. Like, a twist like that could be part of it. And I think it's really clever, like in the writing and directing, that they you never get a satisfying answer. And I think you could claim either side with a pretty strong, like, case. You know what I mean? That you could be like, no, she was just wrong place, wrong time. Or, yeah.
I mean, she might not have been working with the bad guys, but I don't think she was just, like, a totally innocent. Like,
oh, no.
Definitely there's something shady about her. I just don't know if it's that.
Yeah. That was maybe my favorite part of the movie, because the movie ended and I was like, so was Evelyn in on it? Was Evelyn bad? I don't know. And I really liked that. I liked that it wasn't resolved. One thing that I loved the cars. I love that kind of car, like late 70s, 80s, like those big boat cars. And I kept noticing them, and I looked it up, and IMDb had a little thing about that, how they had a couple of cars that they used over and over and over again, so I wasn't crazy. They were using the same cars over and over again. Yeah, but there was some fun car chases. I like that Jean she's not a particularly strong character.
Especially not at the beginning of the movie.
No.
Again, see also how she's like, I've never been alone. I don't know what to do. How do I care for this child? I can't crack an egg.
Yeah. And while she's not, I mean, it becomes pretty obvious that Eddie is bad. Not just from that initial scene. Like, that's fleshed out. And it's also clear that she knows that and is just kind of okay with it. I mean...
Or at least that she has a sense, although maybe not necessarily to the extent. It's like she knows something is up and she's just kind of like, okay, we're gonna not.
Right.
I'm just gonna not figure out what's going on.
She's choosing not to ask questions that she doesn't want to know the answer to. So I think I think that's also an interesting choice from like a writing standpoint. She doesn't have a free pass. Like, she's not this good person. You know what I mean? Like, she's not evil, but she's kind of
a little bit complicit.
Yeah, she is. She is. I mean, she's enjoying the lifestyle that, like, whatever he's doing is bringing, and she knows that he's not a dentist or something, you know.
Yes.
So I like that, that she sort of gets dragged further into this world and then just has to deal with it. And I like the way that she does, because it's kind of artless. Like, she's not graceful about the stuff that she has to do. But she does it in a way that I think is very, like, realistic. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you're in a crazy situation and certain things.
And it's like you just have to cope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about, like, how did you find this movie and why did you like it? Why did you think I should watch it?
I think I saw trailers of this around the time it was coming out, and I was like, it looks cool. Woman-led, vaguely action-y movie. I'm here for it. And also it's Rachel Brosnahan, so, like, how can you not, you know? This is after, I forget how many seasons of Mrs. Maisel, but I already knew I was a fan of her. And so I suggested to my family, because of course that's just always what I do, that we watch this, and I really enjoyed it. Like, I wasn't sure quite what to expect from it, but it was different from what I expected, and I really enjoyed it. And it was one that I thought was really well done, but that I feel like I've heard, like, zero discourse on.
No, I haven't heard anything
anyone
about
I talk to is like, I've never even heard of that movie, much less seen it. And so that's part of why I recommended it to you, because I was like, I feel like this is a good one that just kind of snuck under the rug.
And I have actually, like, bumped into it before. Like, I've looked at it and I've read that synopsis, but I can't do Kids in Peril. And so I was like, maybe not. I'll just skip it. And I just never thought about it again. Do you like? I mean, do you like that kind of movie in general? Do you like you said, sort of vaguely actiony, like suspense kind of movies?
Yeah, I feel like ones that have that kind of undercurrent of like things are going on and you have to figure out what, and it's like spy movies and that kind of thing. I feel like I do tend to enjoy.
All right. Yeah, I don't really have any complaints or criticisms. I think it was a really good movie. And like I said, I'm super picky about like tone and pace, and I felt like it really kept that up pretty well. You know, I think it's hard when so much is like baked into the story that the main character doesn't know and never really knows. You know, so when you have that as part of it, that's just kind of like, yeah, bad stuff's going on, we don't know what it is. I think that's extra hard to make that satisfying and make the danger seem real, you know, while being kept in the dark. But I think they did a really good job on it. So yeah, I think it worked overall. Good choice.
So the verdict is a thumbs up.
Yeah, the verdict is good. Yeah, this movie was good, but have you tried The Majestic?
You know, I actually just recently did watch that.
You did? Okay.
I have no idea why. You definitely didn't tell me.
No. Just complete coincidence.
Just complete coincidence.
Before we get into that, why don't we take a break and see what's on our nightstands?
We should absolutely do that.
Okay. So what do you got going on lately? What are you reading? What are you watching?
So I'm currently reading 2 Terry Pratchett books at the same time.
Oh, what? Why?
Well,
why would you do that?
So you know how the Discworld is like this giant, extensive thing with like some 60 books or something like that?
I do.
Which means that some of them are almost like they're part of different series.
Yes.
So you could just read them at the same time as though they're different series, and it's fine.
Right, but wouldn't that be confusing?
No.
Okay.
So the ones I'm reading is A Hatful of Sky, which is about Tiffany Aching. So it's a young witch. Okay. She goes away to learn witch stuff from another witch.
Sure. Okay.
And I think it's a YA book, and it has kind of like a youthful, vaguely lighthearted feel. And then the other one I'm reading is Witches Abroad, which is about 3 entirely different witches traveling across the disc to stop a Cinderella figure, essentially, from marrying the prince for plot reasons. Okay. And so the characters are entirely different. The only thing that's the same is the setting, kind of. Okay. And so it's not as confusing as you would expect.
But why? Like, why have you chosen to read both of them simultaneously?
Well, one of them is an audiobook. And I always need to have an audiobook and a non-audiobook going at the same time for my sanity. Yeah. And so these were the options, and I just went for it.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. In my head, I always confuse Terry Pratchett and Terry Brooks because they're both like fantasy authors with weird interconnected stories. But Terry Brooks is like the Shannara Chronicles and things like that. Oh. And isn't Terry Pratchett... I always have the impression that those are, like, funny?
They are funny.
Is that part of it? Yeah. Okay. All right. So, yeah.
They're funny, and, like, I would say they're on the lighter end in terms of fantasy. Like, they're not super, like, so much backstory, really long, sprawling, and like, I mean, there's just so many books that it kind of adds up. Yeah. But each individual book, I'd say, isn't too, like, deep into the fantasy stuff. So if you're, like... kind of a wimp about fantasy the way that I am.
As am I.
They might be a good choice for you.
Yeah, okay.
And they're also funny.
Last year we did a sci-fi book club where we did like a pod of 3 books, and we're going to do that again later in the year, but we're gearing up for a fantasy pod. Oh. And I am... Yeah, fantasy is just not for me. So I'm sort of dreading it, but I'm really going to, try. I'm really going to, try to dive into these. And, I think we're going to do Fellowship of the Ring, which is a big undertaking. We're going to do Eyes of the Dragon, which is a Stephen King novel, which I just found out both Nikki, who works here at the library and circulation, and Catherine Elliott, who's our new auditorium and gallery coordinator, both love this book. So we're going to talk about that. And then I think we're going to do Robert Jordan's Eye of the World, which I have read because my wife is a huge fan of those. But I've been doing a little bit of fantasy watching. I love Willow, the old Willow movie. Did you ever, Ron Howard?
I haven't seen it.
Okay. And I've watched the first couple episodes of the show, and I'm into that. And then my wife and I just started watching Rings of Power. Okay. The Lord of the Rings show. Have you watched that at all?
I have not.
How do you feel about Lord of the Rings in general?
I'm a fan.
Are you?
Yeah. Not like a mega fan.
Have you read any of the books?
I've read all of them.
Oh, you have? Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, can I handle it? What do you think? Fellowship of the Ring?
I think you can handle it.
Do you? Okay.
That one isn't too... It's not too much.
I've read The Hobbit, and I've read some of Tolkien's, epic poems. He did a King Arthur one, and he did a Beowulf one. And I read and enjoyed those, but I have never sat down and, I'm going to read the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
I think you can do it.
Maybe this
The
is my
Fellowship,
time.
I feel like, especially has some really fun moments in
Okay.
it. So.
All right.
I believe in you.
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I read some Spider-Man recently. Well, actually, Scarlet Spider and Carnage. Do you know Scarlet Spider at all? Do you know?
No, it sounds intriguing.
There was a whole, like in the 80s, there was this whole Spider-Man clone saga where there was like these clones of Peter Parker. And then there was this big twist that everybody hates where it was like the Spider-Man you thought was Spider-Man for the last like decade is not really him. He's the clone and this guy is the real Spider-Man. Everybody despised this. So they did a new clone era not too long ago. And there's an evil clone of Spider-Man called Kane. And so there's this offshoot book called The Scarlet Spider where Kane goes to Texas to like start anew and kind of gets dragged into being a reluctant superhero.
That sounds kind of fun.
It is fun. It's interesting. It's the supporting cast is totally different. It doesn't, like he has Spider-Man powers and looks like Peter Parker, but it doesn't really read like a Spider-Man story at all because it's just a totally different thing.
Right.
And I was reading along with that, and I got pulled into a crossover about Carnage, who I do not like. Are you familiar with Carnage?
Mm-mm.
Have you seen the Venom movies?
No.
Okay. So it's basically Venom and the Scarlet Spider, who are both kind of reluctant heroes, have to team up to fight Carnage, who is just evil. Like, that's his thing. He's just evil.
I mean, with a name like Carnage.
Yeah, he's just a serial killer who got a symbiote like Venom, but he was already a serial killer, so it's bad news bears. It's bad news all around. So I didn't love that Carnage crossover, but I'm liking the Scarlet Spider. And then I read Devil May Care by Sebastian Faulks, which is a James Bond book. Oh. How do you feel about James Bond?
I have seen a few James Bond movies.
Recent James Bond movies or like old school James Bond movies?
I saw Dr. No, and I saw Casino Royale. So, a little bit of both.
Okay, all right.
So, which is an interesting choice.
I like Dr. No. Dr. No's pretty solid.
It was pretty good.
Yeah.
It was somewhat bizarre.
Yes.
I would say.
Yes. Well, Dr. No with like the metal hands and the whole like he's got his big like island lair is very, very like
it's
1960s.
Very Bond villain, you know.
It is. Yes, he is definitely one. But Casino Royale, I love. I thought that was really good. Did you like that?
I thought it was really good as well. I also have to say, there's like I want to say it's like a late night show clip where they like edit it so it's one of the gambling scenes, but instead of poker chips, it's cheesecake. Because there was this incident where Senator Chuck Schumer like made some comment about using cheesecake for bets, and they were like, "Let's go," and that just like it brings a positive shine to my memories of the movie as a whole. Whenever I think of that, and I also remember the cheesecake thing.
Yeah, Casino Royale by Ian Fleming is a great book. I think the older Bond books are just inherently sexist. I mean, that's just. There's no way around that, And some of it, a small part of it, is kind of a take on toxic masculinity, but it's primarily just sexist. It's just like James Bond is just, the 1950s ideal man who women love and he can do anything he wants. That's just sort of the way they are. So this one that I read, I liked because it is... it's a one-off, came out in 2008. It's Sebastian Faulks is the author, but he wrote it in the style of Ian Fleming. Like he followed Ian Fleming's notes on how he would produce these James Bond books and tried to do it in that way. And I've read a bunch of the Fleming books and it is a really good match, but
That's
it has,
really cool.
And it still has like the James Bond tropes that you would expect. It's, but it's much more, it just has more of a modern sensibility, I think, than the old one. So it was kind of a neat revisit of that. And I wish he'd written more, but it's just the one. But I like that quite a bit. Have you watched anything good?
So Caleb and I just like binge watched the entirety of Wednesday.
Wednesday.
It was like we watched the first episode on Thursday night and we watched the last episode on Tuesday morning, kind of a situation.
Wow. What is it, like 8 episodes?
8 episodes.
8 episodes.
So like not too hard to binge over, 4 days, but also like we enjoyed it. And so we watched it all very quickly and now it's gone, which is really the problem.
It's coming back, right? They're going to do more?
They're going to do a season 2, but like who knows how long it'll take for that to come around.
I was just in the Addams Family, as you recall.
I know. It's just like there's something in the air.
I guess. It's Addams fever. I have watched the first 2 episodes, I think, and I intend to finish it, but it's one that my wife wasn't into, so I was just going to watch it by myself, and that always goes slower, So I'm doing that and A League of Their Own, which I really like, but those are both slow. Things that I finally finished Batwoman. Have you watched any of Batwoman?
I've heard much about it secondhand.
It's just a hot mess of a show. It really is. But I kind of liked the groove they were getting into, and I was sad when it was canceled. It's 3 seasons. It's only the second Arrowverse show that I've ever finished. Just Arrow and now Batwoman. The other ones I've like completely fallen off of. But it was pretty solid. I feel like it came to a satisfying conclusion. I would have watched more, but I get why it ended. But I really liked the character they created, because that was the one where they switched Batwoman.
Which is definitely a challenge.
It is, and they pretty successfully restructured the show, but like season 2 was kind of dealing with the fact that we're restructuring the show.
Right.
And season 3 told a lot of cool Batman stories, but ended in a place where it was like, and this is the new like Ryan Wilder era of the show. Like, this is what the show is going to be, and then canceled. So it kind of feels like it had so much baggage that it never really got a chance to be its own kind of thing, which I think is too bad. And I hope that they bring that character into the comics. And they have a little bit in small ways, but it would be cool to have her like mainstream, because I think she was a good addition to the Bat family overall. So I watched that, and I watched Avatar 2. Have you seen...
I've seen
Avatar 1.
I've seen parts of Avatar 1.
Okay.
I think it was like an incident where my dad put it on and I was sick.
Yeah.
And so I was like watching it, but I was like, I don't know if I actually want to watch this. And then I like went to sleep.
Yeah. Okay. Which
sounds like a really harsh critique, but it was because I was sick.
Like I watched the first one when it came out. I saw it in theaters, and like it was very, especially then, it was incredibly visually impressive. It was just like, wow, I haven't seen anything like this. The second one, it was sort of like, I kind of did and didn't want to see it, and I was like, well, if I'm going to see it, I want to see it, like, in the big screen. So,
reasonable.
So my brother and my friend Michael, they took me out for my birthday, and we saw it in 3D, and it was pretty solid. I mean, it's 3.5 hours, so, yeah. So it's definitely not one that I would, probably like the first Avatar, like, I doubt that I will ever watch this movie again. But I had a pretty good time watching it overall. There's one scene that is like, it's clearly just like the whaling industry, but like on the Avatar world. And I legit had to leave the theater because it was just too upsetting. I couldn't take it.
That's awful.
I was like, this is a good time for a bathroom break. So
I hate when I'm watching a movie in theaters, because like at home you can like be like, oh, I'm covering my eyes, I'm looking away, but in theaters it's like it's no right escape.
There's no escape.
I guess I'll just go stand in the bathroom for 10 minutes and hope that's long enough.
Yes.
Not a good feeling.
No, not a good. You saying you watched it while you were sick reminded me that I was sick recently because I got my COVID booster. And these things hit me weird. My wife was pretty okay, but like anything with a fever, and I'm just like out of commission. Just like, I'm done. Just put me in a coffin. That's it. So I was bedridden, and so I watched the Steve Martin Pink Panther movies in the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night?
Yes, because I was like 1,000 degrees, and I couldn't sleep, and I was like, I'm not going to lay here and be miserable anymore. So I was miserable while watching the Pink Panther movies. Really funny. Have you watched these?
I don't think I have.
Listen, they're objectively bad movies, so just accept that. But for some reason, I like Steve Martin, and there's these very like funny sequences and quotable lines, and like I feel like it's my brother and I are the only people in the world who like these movies. But it got me through. It got me through a high fever. So thank you, Steve Martin. But I think that's pretty much it for me. Other than that, my night. What's currently on the old nightstand? What are you currently reading? You said the two Pratchett books.
The two Pratchett books.
Okay. All right. I'm reading the book for our book club, which is World War II fiction. We're alternating between fiction and nonfiction. We're on a fiction round this time. And so that's my audiobook at the moment. And I'm reading War and Peace with a friend of mine. Yeah. There's this blog that does like a year of War and Peace, because it's like, it really works out really well. But it's like 350 chapters. Oh. And the chapters are probably like 5 pages each. So you just read a chapter a day, and then there's like a little blog post that goes with it if you want to read that. And then he and I have been sort of like, well, how are you liking it? So it's fun. It's a good way. Yeah. It's been one I've wanted to read, but it's just so massive that I just haven't, I'm still at the midway point of Les Mis. Sometimes I have to get back to that. Have you read that at all?
I read like a adapted for children version when I was like,
oh, I love
11.
those. I love those.
It was interesting.
I've literally read 700 pages of that book, and I got to this like kind of a splitting point, and I was like, I'm gonna take a break. That was like 10 years ago, I want to say. So But I still got it all right up here, so maybe I'll get back to it.
Well, I mean, I can't even remember Evelyn from I'm Your Woman, which I watched 2 years ago. So
that's true. I think she was evil.
I'm sure she was evil. I think
she was. You are.
Well, I don't know what variety of evil, but she was definitely evil.
She was evil. Okay. All right. So yes. So now let's get back to it. So you have tried.
I have tried The Majestic.
All right.
Which is a movie that I will say I had never heard of before.
I don't think anybody's heard of it.
Well, I guess it's just the day for, like, movies no one's heard of.
I guess so. All right, hit me. Do you got some facts?
I'm going to hit you with some facts.
I have your facts here if this is easier for you.
This works.
Okay.
The Majestic. Mm-hmm. This was a 2001 movie.
Okay.
Which I will say, I was watching this, and for, like, the first 45 minutes, I was like, when was this made?
Yeah. Doesn't it feel like 1950s almost?
It really does. Yeah. And so, yeah, it was like the moment when I saw Ron Rifkin, who plays just like kind of a side character, who's in the show Alias that also came out around 2001.
Oh, yeah.
And he looked exactly the same.
Yeah.
And I was like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And so that was when I was like, we need to do a quick Google. When did this come out? So it came out in 2001, folks.
That makes sense because I remember seeing it at the Lakeview Square Mall, Battle Creek, Michigan. Oh. And I'm pretty sure I was still in high school. Like, I think it came out during my, like, the last semester of my senior year of high school.
I was 1 in 2001.
You can see you were alive at least.
Yeah, I was.
That's something.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Only growing up in the 2000s. I can't even imagine that.
It's like I was there for part of the 90s, but I don't really remember that.
Yeah, you don't. I just think it's such an interesting time, like the 80s to the 2000s, just because like how drastically, like, has society ever changed as drastically as it did from like pre-internet to post-internet?
I don't think it
I don't think so either.
Like the printing press was also a big deal and kind of similar in some ways.
Yeah,
but I feel like the internet probably has it beat. I would say.
I could see. I think that's a good comparison though. Like, to have access to books, you know, is like a huge deal.
It's like, I mean, that's kind of what we're all about here. So.
That's true. Thanks, Johan.
All right.
Anyway,
Let me hit
please.
you with some more facts.
Tell me.
This was directed and produced by Frank Darabont, written by Michael Sloan.
Okay, I don't know those names. Do you know anything else they did?
I don't know anything about those names.
All right.
All right, starring Jim Carrey as Peter/Luke. I'm pretty sure I've never seen anything else Jim Carrey was in.
What? What?
Like, I did a little bit of looking. Actually, most of these like cast people, I like did some like peeking around at their like movies and things they've been in. And I
never
was like,
in your life have you seen a Jim Carrey in anything?
I don't think so.
This is why this podcast is a good idea, Allie, because that just blew my mind. We have it on film. I just lost it for a second there.
Oh man.
Well, what a weird one to choose then for your first Jim Carrey movie. Wow. Okay. All right. I'm trying to think like recently what would make sense, like Mr. Popper's Penguins or like anything like that. I feel like
I read the book of Mr. Popper's Penguins.
It doesn't count. You didn't see the Sonic the Hedgehog movie that just came out,
nope.
And none of the classic canon like Ace Ventura or The Mask or.
I don't think so.
Wow. Okay. All right.
Yep. I've just been, committing this crime against humanity.
Jim Carrey, is primarily known for like his rubber-faced comedy stylings, but he's got these. There's more, but I feel like the three movies that showcase like what a truly like great actor he is, I think, are The Majestic, The Truman Show, and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
I have seen that.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say if there's any movie you have to watch, it's that one.
I have seen it.
Yes.
Who is he in that?
He's the main character.
He's the main guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's so atypical. Like, if you know Jim Carrey from, like, pop culture, it makes sense that you wouldn't have equated the two because that's such a deep and understated performance versus something like Ace Ventura.
I really liked Eternal Sunshine.
Oh, I do too.
I thought it was great.
It's a great movie. It's a great cast.
I'm, like, trying to, like, compare in my mind and see if it makes sense that it's the same person.
Those are somewhat concurrent. I mean, within 5 years or so, I would say, of The Majestic. That's an early 2000s movie, I'm pretty sure.
I think.
Okay. All right, so at least you've seen one.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, so Jim Carrey.
Okay. Then we've got Martin Landau as Harry Trimble, who is sort of a father figure to Jim Carrey, the main character.
As it comes out,
As it comes out.
I knew him from Mission Impossible. He was in the old Mission Impossible series.
I have not seen Mission Impossible.
You haven't seen it? Okay.
But he is apparently in North by Northwest. I don't remember who he is in North by Northwest.
He's got the look. He's got the look for a Hitchcock film, yeah.
And so, what a weird movie. Like, I feel like North by Northwest is when you watch, it seems all normal at the time, and then you think back on it, and you're like,
yeah,
what just happened?
Yeah, it's a good one. I think I
enjoyed really like
it. It's Cary Grant, right? That's Cary Grant in North
by Northwest?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
We also have Laurie Holden as Adele, who's someone who looked immensely familiar to me, and I don't think I've seen anything else she's been in.
Okay, all right.
And then we have Jerry Black as Emmett Smith and Susan Willis as Irene Terwilliger, and I also mentioned that it has Ron Rifkin from Alias, which is what threw me so much.
I think there's one other... David Ogden Stiers, I think, is also in it, who you'd recognize from other things. He's the voice of Cogsworth in Beauty and the Beast, for example.
Okay.
But, yeah, all right, so give us some plot synopsis. What happens in the Majestic?
So, this guy, Peter Appleton, is a movie script writer.
Yeah.
And he gets accused of being a communist, because,
it's the times. What are you going to do?
What are you going to do? And so, he and his, stuffed animal monkey thing.
Yes, that's right.
Driving up the coast of California in this car.
Yeah.
It starts downpouring rain, and he, gets in an accident that it's very improbable you would survive.
True. Yeah.
But he survives.
Yeah.
But, as a consequence of this, he doesn't remember anything.
Yeah.
So he washes up in this small town and starts talking to people, and they're trying to help him out. And one of the kind of older-ish guys there recognizes him and says, "Oh, you're Luke, you're my son."
Yeah.
And so he's like, "I am? Am I?"
Yeah.
And so most of the movie is kind of that, of him, getting to know people and exploring, kind of making a new life. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of goes how you would expect.
Yeah.
He remembers, the people who accused him of being commies show up, everything goes down. But it has a satisfactory ending, I would say.
Yeah, and it's The Majestic is the title of the movie theater in the small town that the father and the son had sort of run together. And so when Jim Carrey comes and is, expected to be the son, the father's like, we're going to open the Majestic again. And that's sort of that's a thread that kind of holds true. Like, opening the Majestic sort of gives them purpose and helps them build a relationship and everything like that. Very nice small town. Feels very like 1950s Frank Capra kind of vibe. Interesting that we both chose period pieces.
I know. Without any idea that we were doing
That's right.
it. Yeah.
So what did you think? What did you think of it?
I really enjoyed it.
Did you?
I was watching it, and at first I was like, what even? Because it's kind of funny at parts, but at other parts it's more I don't know, just kind of played straight. And so I was like, I don't quite know what's going on here.
Yeah.
But it's one that, again, about half an hour in, I was like, I can see exactly where this is going to go.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. I thought the story was just kind of, sweet and very satisfying. And so I was like...
Yeah, I think that it, watching it, and you have the amnesia thing, and he's mistaken to be this guy... Yeah, I mean, the hammer's going to drop, obviously.
It's I've watched movies before. I know how this works.
Did it ever cross your mind that maybe he really was the son? It did.
Because there's that bit where... his dad figure is talking with, I think it's the doctor in the town or something, and he's been gone for almost a decade. Yeah. So the timeline in terms of when the war ended, because that's why he was gone and missing in the first place, there has to have been things that happened in between, so he could have just started an entirely new life somewhere else. Right. And I was like, wait, did he start an entirely...
when is the amnesia?
When is the amnesia? Yeah. What's going on?
Yeah.
And so, especially because he mentions just offhand really early in the movie, he's like, oh yeah, I went to college right after the war on the GI Bill.
Yeah.
And so I was like, could he have come back from the war, not knowing who he was, going to college, and just...
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like that's the case based on
no, I don't think
how things go later.
I don't think so.
But it was very interesting to think about.
Yeah. I think it dangles a little bit out there. There's a romance, too. Obviously, he had this childhood sweetheart, and she's on the fence about whether or not it's him, and that's sort of something that goes throughout. I liked the bit about the piano. Yeah. Remember where they get up and they're like, oh, you're a great piano player. Go and do it. You'll be great. And he's like, I don't remember. I do not know how to play the piano. I can't do that.
Just thinking about that, I'm like, shivers.
And so he goes and he sits at the piano and he plays ragtime. He plays a big, a real bopping kind of number. And a lot of people are like, oh, it's him, but who is it?
His piano teacher is like, I never taught you this. This isn't how you treat Liszt.
Yeah. Yeah. There's kind of a sense there that, he couldn't really have played that kind of piano. He could play classical or whatever. I just found this movie to be so pleasant, and I watched this as a 17-year-old. And in 2001, the Jim Carrey that everybody like wanted and expected was like hot on the heels of like as I said, Ace Ventura, The Mask, Dumb and Dumber, Liar Liar, like the 90s, like those big four movies were, you know, not that they're different performances, but they go for the same kind of like
makes sense
laughs and the physical comedy and everything. And so to see him step out in something like this, I'm pretty sure this was a colossal bomb. You know,
when I was looking up facts, it was like, yeah, it didn't do that great in the box office, though The Fellowship of the Ring and Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone came out around the same time. So I mean, that's a rough time.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And apparently critics were also not the most enthused, but I'm like, why? It was just so nice.
I know.
Like,
it's a very unusual, especially like for movies of that time. I can't think of a lot of movies that went for that nostalgic sort of pleasant vibe, you know, like. But now, I mean, you see that all the time. Like The Fabelmans just won, you know, the Golden Globe for Best Picture and stuff. Like I feel like the nostalgia wave there was like just like coming out of the 90s, like we weren't there. You know what I mean? People weren't doing that yet.
Yeah.
You know? And so maybe if had it been made like 10 years earlier or 10 years later, it would have landed, you know, differently.
And I would also not have been competing with The Fellowship of the Ring.
That's true. That's true.
That is a rough time.
Yeah.
And I think like Ocean's 11 also was coming out at the same time.
Yep. That's a hard time. That's a hard time all around. But I think he's just really good in it. You know, I think that there's a scene later on. I mean, I guess, well, this is a bit of a spoiler, so be warned. But when the memory comes back, when you see the movie that he wrote, and his reaction to like seeing this movie that he wrote up on the screen and having the memories kind of like, because by that point he had almost accepted that he was this guy,
and he was pretty happy with his life. He was,
yeah. Either he'd accepted that he was, or accepted that like
he was like, well, this is fine.
This is where I'm at now, you know. And so to see him kind of transform back into that character, I feel like was just really strong acting. You know, just like his facial expressions, and just you could kind of see the both the relief and the oh no of it all. You know, I think was a pretty big deal. The ending, which I won't spoil, is a little cutesy. I mean, it's a little idealized. You know, I don't really know that relationships and things would have worked that way. I think there's just too much baggage and weirdness to like just go forward, but I accepted it for the kind of movie that it was. I feel like anything else would have just been disappointing, you know?
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's the kind of thing that it's like with time and conversation, you could get to the point where relationships can keep going, but it was very kind of like, off we go, which I feel like it's a movie. You know, like, what are you going to do?
That's right. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you liked it. I wasn't sure how you'd feel. I feel like if you haven't seen The Truman Show, I think you'd like that quite a bit, too.
Okay.
Do you know what that is?
I am loosely familiar.
Okay. I mean, the concept of that is that Jim Carrey is unwittingly the star of a TV series that films 24/7 of his life. And it's just on all the time. And everybody around him is actors, and he's in, like, a closed, like, domed studio that's massive. And he starts to slowly put things together, and, you know, then it takes a turn. But that's another one that's, you know, if you're expecting funny Jim Carrey, you're not going to get it. And it's a more contemplative kind of story, you know. So I think you would dig that. Probably more than you would like Liar Liar or something like that. I don't know how 90s comedy would work on you.
I don't know. We haven't
Maybe
really
we'll
tried.
find out. Maybe we'll find out, but have you tried? Oh. Whew. Well, I feel like we successfully picked movies for each other.
We did.
So that's something.
We did good today.
From different, almost exactly 20 years apart were these movies, which is pretty much where we are, age-wise, which is funny. So here we are. So as we talked about last time, how it's going to work, we're going to be phasing out the How's Things setup here, and this feed will stay active for a while, but we'll have new links and everything for you to subscribe but have you tried, and that's going to be coming soon, so keep an eye out for that. You can watch our social media, All the Book Show on Twitter, or D.A. Howe Library on Twitter, and David A. Howe Public Library on Facebook. We'll make it very clear, and we'll put some in the feed here, so we'll give you plenty of notice on how to switch over, but we hope you'll pop over to the new feed. We've I've got a lot of things in my mind that we could talk about. And today we purposely chose, like, let's just do movies. But that's not the plan going forward. The plan going forward is anything and everything.
Anything's fair game.
Yeah. I mean, it could be like, Allie could be like, you have to watch Inspector Morse. And I could be like, you have to try Jones Soda. You know, like, it could be anything. Have you ever tried Jones Soda?
I don't think so.
The
Nor
90s.
have I watched Inspector Morse.
Oh, you haven't?
I don't think so.
Inspector Lewis? Have you watched any of those?
I don't think so.
Wow. That seems like a Stevic family show to me, but no, do you guys not do murder mystery?
We do.
That's BBC. Like, it's a BBC.
Wait, is it the, like, Endeavor Morse? Is that the one?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, yes, that I have seen.
Okay, have you just seen Endeavor?
Yes.
Okay, so
That's
there's
all
like
I've seen. Endeavor.
So there's like Inspector Morse, which went for like decades.
Okay.
And then there was a spin-off of that, Inspector Lewis. Lewis was like his junior partner.
Okay.
And then Lewis takes on like the lead role. And that ran for like 7 or 8 series. And then Endeavor is like a prequel to all of that.
Gotcha.
So you know the universe anyway.
Okay. Yeah. Endeavor I really enjoyed.
Oh, okay. I wanted to give that one a try, so maybe I will.
I recommend.
Maybe I will. So anyway, we're going to be throwing random things at each other. And we're going to see what happens, because we're not going to like them all. Today was nice because we both liked the things, but some episodes are going to be painful. So...
And there will be so many more opportunities to see your soul leave your body when you realize that I haven't seen any Jim Carrey movies.
That's true. Woo! Wow. Okay. Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode. Thanks for tuning in to How's Things and our little secret pilot here. But have you tried? All right. See you next time, everybody.